Maya had always loved her diner. It wasn't big or fancy, but it had a charm that people seemed to notice the moment they walked in. The smell of fresh coffee mixed with sizzling bacon and toasted bread gave a sense of warmth that made anyone feel at home. The old wooden booths creaked just a little when someone sat down, and the faded red checkered tablecloths told stories of countless meals shared over the years. Maya had opened the diner nearly 15 years ago, and over time it had become more than just a place to eat. It was a small hub for the community, a place where people came not just to fill their stomachs but to feel connected. She knew most of her customers by name, knew their favorite dishes, and often knew when something was wrong in their lives, even before they said a word. On a particularly quiet Tuesday evening, the diner was almost empty. The sun had started to dip behind the small town buildings, casting long shadows across the parking lot. Maya was wiping down the counters, humming softly under her breath when the front door creaked open. She looked up and saw a man standing there, leaning slightly against the doorframe. He was tall, dressed in worn leather with patches on his jacket that she didn't recognize, and there was a roughness about him that immediately caught her attention. His hair was slightly messy, and there was a thin trickle of blood along his temple. He looked tired, worn, like he had been running for a long time. "Evening," Maya said, trying to sound casual, though her gut told her something unusual was happening. The man nodded briefly and stepped inside. She noticed the small scars on his hands and the way he avoided eye contact with anyone in the diner. He didn't order anything right away. Instead, he looked around as if measuring the room and everyone in it. Maya didn't ask questions. There was something about him that made her feel he needed help. And she had always had a soft spot for people in trouble, even when it brought her own danger. The evening continued quietly for a few minutes, the sound of the coffee machine and the occasional clatter of a plate filling the air. Then suddenly sirens wailed in the distance. Maya's heart skipped a beat. The man stiffened, glancing toward the window with eyes that were sharp and alert. She didn't know exactly who he was, but she could tell he was scared. He moved toward the back of the diner, and Maya made a decision that would change everything. "Follow me," she said softly, leading him to the small kitchen door at the back. She pushed open the door to a storage area, dimly lit and filled with boxes of supplies. It wasn't much, but it was hidden from view, a place where someone could stay out of sight for a while. "You can stay here for a bit," she told him. He looked at her, surprise flashing across his face. There was a moment of hesitation, as if he wasn't used to someone offering help without expecting anything in return. "Why are you helping me?" he asked quietly. His voice was low, rough, but not unkind. Maya shrugged, trying to sound casual. "Sometimes people need help. Doesn't mean I'm asking questions." He nodded slowly, clearly still cautious, and sat on a crate. Maya closed the door softly, then walked back to the counter, pretending everything was normal. Inside, her mind was racing. She had just taken a risk that could land her in serious trouble, but she felt a strange sense of rightness in it. Helping someone in need, even when it wasn't easy, was part of who she was. A few minutes later, the sirens grew louder. A police car pulled up outside, and 2 officers stepped out. Maya felt her pulse quicken, but she kept her face calm. One of the officers walked in, looking around the diner with a sharp eye. "Evening," he said, trying to sound casual, but the tension in his posture betrayed him. "We're looking for someone. Have you seen a man come through here tonight?" Maya shook her head, keeping her voice steady. "No, officer. Just me here, cleaning up for the night." She kept her hands on the counter, open and visible, showing she wasn't hiding anything. The officer narrowed his eyes, studying her for a moment. He asked a few more questions, each one carefully phrased, trying to get her to slip up. Maya answered them calmly, never giving away any hint of what had happened. Behind the counter, she could hear the muffled sounds of the man moving slightly in the storage area. He seemed tense, clearly aware of the officer's presence. Maya felt a rush of empathy for him. She knew what it was like to feel trapped, to be hunted when all you wanted was to just get through the day in peace. She had faced hard times herself, times when no one had stepped in to help. That's why she couldn't turn away someone in need now. The officers lingered for a while, asking about cars parked outside, whether she had seen anyone loitering near the diner, and even checking the back entrance. Maya stayed composed, answering honestly but carefully, never revealing the truth. Eventually, after what felt like an eternity, the officers left, muttering about checking other places. Maya watched them go, her heart still racing. She knew she had bought the man some time, but she also knew it wasn't over. After the officers left, she returned to the back room. "You're safe for now," she whispered. The man looked at her with a mix of gratitude and relief. "Why are you doing this?" he asked again. Maya smiled faintly. "Because it's the right thing to do. You don't deserve to be hunted for something you didn't do." He nodded slowly, clearly processing the words. There was a silence between them, filled with unspoken understanding. Maya realized that bravery didn't always come from fighting. Sometimes it came from standing firm and protecting someone else, even when it meant putting yourself at risk. As the night went on, Maya kept an ear out for any more sirens or signs of trouble. She moved quietly around the diner, cleaning and tidying, pretending everything was normal even though her mind was alert and racing. The man in the back room seemed to relax slightly, leaning against the wall, exhausted from whatever he had been running from. Maya made him a small cup of coffee and brought it quietly to the storage area. "Here," she said softly. "It might help you stay awake and alert." He took it without a word, sipping slowly, eyes closed for a brief moment. Hours passed, and the diner remained mostly quiet. Maya thought about her life, about all the people she had helped over the years, and about the strange ways life could put you in the middle of danger when you least expected it. She felt a sense of pride mixed with anxiety, knowing that what she was doing was risky, but also knowing that she couldn't turn away from someone who needed her help. By the time the night was nearly over, the man was resting quietly and Maya had returned to the counter, sipping her own coffee, keeping watch. She knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now she felt a sense of calm. She had done what she could, and sometimes that was enough. The diner had always been a place of comfort, but tonight it had also become a place of courage, a place where someone could find safety when the world outside was harsh and unforgiving. Maya understood that life was full of moments like this, moments that tested your character and asked you to stand up for what was right. And in that quiet, simple diner, surrounded by the smells of food and the soft hum of machines, she had made a choice that would change both her life and the life of the man she had protected forever. The next morning, the diner was alive with the usual sounds. The coffee machine hissed, plates clattered, and the soft chatter of a few early customers filled the air. Maya moved around quickly, flipping pancakes, pouring coffee, and greeting each person who walked in with a warm smile. But despite the normalcy of the morning, her mind kept returning to last night. She couldn't shake the memory of the man in the back room, the fear in his eyes, and the police officers who had been so close to finding him. Her stomach tightened as she wiped down the counters, thinking about what could have happened if she hadn't acted quickly. By late morning, the diner began to fill up. A few regulars stopped by, chatting about the weather, the local sports game, and the usual gossip. Maya greeted each one, making small talk, but she was constantly scanning the parking lot, half expecting to see flashing lights or uniforms. She knew that what she had done was risky. Hiding someone from the police, especially someone connected to a group as notorious as the Hells Angels, could bring serious trouble, and yet she couldn't regret her decision. Something inside her told her that helping someone in need was more important than worrying about the consequences. Around noon, the bell above the door jingled, and Maya looked up to see a man enter, wearing a plain jacket and sunglasses. He walked slowly, deliberately, scanning the room as if he was measuring everything carefully. Maya's heart skipped a beat. She knew immediately that he was connected to the man she had hidden the night before. Something about the way he carried himself, the confidence in his movements and the subtle toughness in his face told her this wasn't just a random stranger. The man walked up to the counter. "You're Maya," he said, his voice calm but firm. Maya nodded, keeping her expression neutral. "I heard about what you did last night," he continued. "You helped one of ours. That took guts. Not many people would do that." Maya blinked, taken aback. She had expected anger, threats, or even distrust, but not words of gratitude. "I didn't do it for thanks," she replied softly. I didn't want someone to get hurt if they didn't deserve it." He studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Fair enough. That's good to hear. But you need to know, helping him isn't without risk. The authorities might still come back. And not everyone in this world respects someone like you doing the right thing." Maya took a deep breath, trying to calm the flutter of anxiety in her chest. She had expected risk, but hearing it spoken aloud made it feel more real. Still, she refused to show fear. "I can handle it," she said quietly. The man nodded again, then stepped back. "Good, just know we appreciate it, and Don't be afraid to call if things get rough. We have ways of keeping people safe." With that, he left, the bell jingling softly as the door closed behind him. The rest of the afternoon passed slowly. Maya focused on her work, trying to push the encounter out of her mind, but she couldn't help noticing every car that passed by, every shadow that fell across the windows. Her customers didn't see the tension she was feeling, and she was grateful for that. Some of them talked about mundane things like the town fair coming up or the new shop opening down the street. Others asked about the diner itself, complimenting her on the breakfast specials and the warm atmosphere. Maya smiled and chatted politely, but her thoughts were always partly elsewhere, still on the man she had hidden and the unknown dangers that might be following him. As evening approached, the diner quieted down. Maya began cleaning, wiping down tables and sweeping the floor. That's when she heard a faint tapping on the back door. She froze, her heart racing. Slowly, she walked toward the door, careful not to make any sudden movements. Peeking through the small window, she saw a figure standing outside. It was the man she had helped. His jacket was dusty, his hair a little messier than before, but there was a faint smile on his face. "I needed to see you," he said softly as Maya opened the door. "I wanted to thank you." Properly, Maya nodded, not quite sure what to say. Words felt small compared to what had happened. "You're welcome," she said quietly. "I just did what I thought was right." He stepped inside, glancing around to make sure no one was paying too much attention. "I know it was risky for you," he continued, "and I don't want you to get into trouble because of me. But you saved me. I can't forget that." Maya felt a warmth in her chest. She had always believed that small acts of kindness mattered, that standing up for someone who couldn't stand up for themselves was important. But hearing it acknowledged, seeing the gratitude in his eyes, made it feel real in a way she hadn't expected. They talked quietly for a few minutes, and the man shared pieces of his story. He wasn't dangerous in the way people often assumed. He had been at the wrong place at the wrong time, mistaken for someone else, and things had escalated quickly. Maya listened without judgment, nodding as he spoke. She understood more than she could express how frightening it was to feel hunted and misunderstood. After a while, he stood up to leave. "I should go before it gets too late," he said. "But I want you to know that what you did, it matters. People like you don't come around often." Maya smiled faintly, feeling both proud and nervous. "Take care of yourself," she said, "and stay safe." The man nodded once more and stepped out into the night. Maya closed the door and leaned against it for a moment, exhaling slowly. The adrenaline from the previous night and the tension of the day had left her drained, but there was also a quiet satisfaction. She had made a choice that was difficult, but she had stayed true to her instincts and her values. As she moved back to the counter to finish cleaning, her mind wandered. She thought about how quickly life could change, how one decision could lead to unexpected consequences, both good and bad. She knew that the police might still be looking for the man, and she knew that being associated with him could bring attention she wasn't used to, but she also knew that helping him had been the right thing to do. The diner was quiet now, except for the soft hum of the lights and the occasional creak of the floorboards. Maya sat down on one of the stools at the counter, taking a moment to rest. She sipped her coffee slowly, feeling the warmth spread through her body. The events of the past day felt surreal, like a story that could have belonged in a book rather than real life. But it had happened, and she had faced it head on. For the first time that day, she allowed herself to smile. She knew that courage didn't always mean fighting or being loud. Sometimes it meant standing firm, being calm and protecting someone when no one else would. And sometimes it meant trusting your instincts and doing what felt right, even when the world seemed uncertain. As night fell, Maya locked the doors and turned off the lights. She looked out at the empty street, the soft glow of the diner's sign reflecting on the pavement. She felt a mix of fear and hope. The fear came from knowing that life could throw unexpected challenges her way. The hope came from knowing that she had the strength to face them. And in that moment, she realized something important. Even in a small town, even in a quiet diner, bravery and kindness could change lives. Maya went home that night, exhausted but awake in a way she hadn't been before. She thought about the man, about the police, and about the strange, unpredictable ways life worked. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but she knew one thing for certain. She would face it with the same courage and compassion she had shown today. And that thought brought her a sense of peace, a quiet confidence that whatever challenges lay ahead, she would meet them head on, with her heart steady and her values intact. The night after the events at the diner, Maya lay in her small apartment above the diner, staring at the ceiling. The house was quiet except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the floorboard settling. Sleep felt impossible. Her mind replayed the previous night over and over. The man in the back room, the sirens outside, the tense expressions of the police officers. Every detail came back vividly, and she couldn't stop thinking about what might have happened if she hadn't acted quickly. She turned on her side, hugging a pillow to her chest. She could almost see him again, sitting on the crate in the dim light, exhausted and scared. And she felt a strange mix of relief and anxiety. Relief that he had made it through the night safely, and anxiety because she knew this was far from over. Hiding someone from the authorities, especially someone connected to a group like the Hells Angels, could bring trouble that wasn't easy to predict. Maya had faced difficult situations before, but nothing quite like this. She had always believed in helping people, standing up for the right thing and protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. But this was different. There was real danger here, not just minor trouble, and still she couldn't regret her decision. Even with the fear gnawing at her, she knew she had done what her conscience demanded. As she lay there, memories from her past started to surface. She thought about times when she had stepped in to help someone in need, even when it wasn't easy. There was the elderly man in town whose house had been broken into, and she had stayed with him for hours, making sure he felt safe. There was the young teenager who had gotten into trouble at school, and she had given him advice and support when no one else would listen. Maya had always been someone who tried to make a difference, one small act at a time, and she realized that this situation, as dangerous as it was just another chapter in that part of her life. Hours passed slowly and sleep remained elusive. She finally got up and made herself a cup of tea, sitting by the window and looking out at the empty streets. The town was quiet at this hour, the kind of quiet that made every sound feel louder and every shadow more noticeable. She sipped her tea slowly, trying to calm her racing thoughts. The man's face kept returning to her mind, along with the words he had spoken, the quiet gratitude in his voice, the way he had looked at her as if she had done something extraordinary. Maya knew that, in the grand scheme of things, what she had done might not seem like much. She hadn't fought anyone or confronted danger head-on with weapons or force. She had simply given someone a chance to be safe, even for a little while. But she also knew that sometimes courage wasn't about dramatic action. It was about quiet strength, about making choices that required moral clarity and personal risk. She thought about the police officers, too. They hadn't seemed malicious, just doing their job, but they represented a threat nonetheless. Maya understood the law and the consequences of interfering with it, yet she had followed her instincts anyway. It wasn't defiance for the sake of defiance, it was a deeper understanding of right and wrong, a desire to protect someone who had no one else to turn to. The night grew darker, and the world outside seemed to hold its breath. Maya's thoughts wandered again to the man, wondering where he was now, whether he had found a safe place to rest, and whether the authorities might still be looking for him. She felt a sense of responsibility, even though she knew she had done all she could. It was a strange, heavy feeling, carrying someone else's safety on your shoulders, but Maya had grown used to that sense of duty. She had carried it through many challenges in her life, and she would carry it through this one too. Her mind drifted to what might happen next. She imagined scenarios where the police returned, where the man was discovered, or where someone else in town questioned her about the events. Each possibility made her stomach tighten, but she refused to let fear control her. She reminded herself that she had acted out of compassion and courage, and that sometimes the right choice required taking risks. As she sat by the window, she remembered the small moments of kindness she had experienced herself. The time a stranger had helped her carry groceries during a storm, or when a neighbor had offered a listening ear during a difficult moment. Those acts of humanity had stayed with her, shaping her understanding of what it meant to care for others. And now she realized she had created a similar moment for someone else, a moment that could change a person's life in ways she might never fully know. Time moved slowly, and eventually Maya decided to lie down again. She closed her eyes, trying to quiet her mind, but the images and thoughts continued to swirl. She thought about the diner, her customers, and the small community that relied on her in ways she sometimes didn't fully appreciate. She realized that courage wasn't just about grand gestures. It was about the everyday choices, the small decisions that built trust and safety in the lives of others. Hours later, just before dawn, Maya finally felt her eyelids grow heavy. The night had been long, filled with reflection, worry, and a sense of responsibility that weighed on her chest. She drifted into a light sleep, still aware of the world around her, still carrying the unspoken burden of someone else's safety, yet comforted by the knowledge that she had acted with integrity and heart. When she woke in the morning, the first light of day streaming through her window, she felt a mix of exhaustion and quiet pride. She had faced fear, uncertainty, and risk, and she had done so with courage. The world outside was waking up, and the diner would soon fill with the familiar sounds of coffee, laughter, and conversation. But Maya knew that something had changed. The events of the night before had left a mark on her, deep and lasting. She felt a new awareness of how fragile safety could be, how quickly life could shift, and how important it was to stand up for what was right, even when it wasn't easy. She prepared for the day as usual, moving around the diner with practiced efficiency. Yet her mind lingered on the night before. The man's story, the gratitude in his eyes, and the silent understanding they had shared played over and over in her mind. She realized that life was full of moments like this, moments that tested character and forced people to confront their values. And she knew that no matter what challenges came next, she would meet them with the same courage and compassion she had shown that night. By mid-morning, Maya was serving breakfast to a few regulars. The room was filled with the comforting smells of fresh bread, eggs, and bacon. Conversations flowed naturally, and for a moment, everything felt normal again. Yet beneath the surface, there was a quiet tension, a sense of anticipation that Maya couldn't ignore. She knew that the world could change quickly, that the safety she had provided the night before might be temporary. But she also knew that she had done everything within her power to help someone in need, and that was something no one could take away from her. As the day continued, Maya reflected on the lessons of the night before. Courage wasn't always loud. It wasn't about dramatic gestures or heroic acts. Sometimes it was quiet, simple, and profoundly human. It was about choosing to do the right thing, even when fear whispered that it might be dangerous. It was about protecting others when no one else would, and trusting that small acts of kindness and bravery could ripple out in ways that were impossible to predict. By the time the sun began to set again, Maya felt a sense of resolve. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she would face them with the same strength and clarity she had shown the night before. She had learned that fear could be managed, that responsibility could be shouldered, and that integrity mattered more than comfort or safety. And with that knowledge, she prepared to close the diner for the night, feeling a quiet confidence that, no matter what happened, she had the courage to meet it. The next morning, Maya arrived at the diner earlier than usual. The sun had barely risen and the air outside was crisp, carrying the faint smell of dew on the pavement. She unlocked the doors, flipped the sign to open, and switched on the lights. Everything felt calm and normal, at least on the surface. She moved through the diner, wiping down counters, arranging menus, and preparing for the first customers. But despite the morning routine, her mind was restless. Last night's events and the man she had protected were never far from her thoughts. Maya poured herself a cup of coffee, taking a slow sip as she looked out the window. She tried to shake off the tension, reminding herself that she had done the right thing. But there was a small knot of worry deep inside her. What if the authorities returned? What if something unexpected happened? The man she had helped had seemed grateful, but she knew that gratitude didn't always keep danger away. She sighed and focused on the coffee, letting its warmth calm her nerves for a moment. The morning passed quietly at first. A few regulars trickled in, chatting softly as they ate their breakfast. Maya greeted each person with her usual warmth, serving eggs, toast, and hot coffee with practiced ease. For a while, it seemed as though the diner was returning to its usual rhythm. The familiar sounds of clattering dishes and quiet conversation offered a sense of comfort. Maya allowed herself a small smile, feeling the familiar sense of purpose that came from running her diner. Then around mid-morning she heard it, a low rumbling sound from outside. At first she thought it was a passing truck, but the sound grew louder, deeper, and more constant. It wasn't just one vehicle, it was many. Her stomach tightened as she looked out the window, squinting against the sunlight. At the far end of the street, a line of motorcycles appeared, stretching farther than she could immediately see. One by one, they roared toward the diner, the engines echoing off the buildings and shaking the air. Maya froze, her hands gripping the edge of the counter. Her mind raced. Could this be trouble? Was it related to the man she had helped? She had no idea what to expect. The rumble grew louder, louder still, until finally she saw hundreds of bikers, leather jackets, patches, and helmets filling the street, turning toward her diner. The sheer number of them was staggering. She could hardly believe what she was seeing. The bell above the door jingled as the first few bikers stepped inside. Maya's heart pounded, but she didn't move. She stayed behind the counter, her instincts sharp and alert. The bikers filled the diner quickly, not with anger or hostility, but with a quiet, watchful presence. Their eyes scanned the room, and for a moment the air was heavy with tension. Maya felt a mixture of fear and awe. She had faced danger before, but this was on a scale she had never imagined. One of the bikers, a tall man with a weathered face and a calm demeanor, stepped forward. "Are you Maya?" he asked. His voice was firm, but not threatening. Maya nodded slowly, unsure of what to say. "We're here because of what you did yesterday," he continued. "You helped one of ours. That's not something we forget." Maya's mouth went dry. She had expected confrontation, maybe anger or questions, but not gratitude spoken so directly. I just did what I thought was right," she said quietly. The man nodded. "And that's why we're here, to thank you." He paused and looked around the diner. "We don't do this often. We don't usually come to someone's place like this. But what you did, it matters." Maya's heart began to calm, replaced by a cautious curiosity. She had always believed that small acts of courage could make a difference, but she had never expected to see it recognized in such a dramatic way. Around her, the bikers moved with quiet respect. They weren't threatening anyone. They didn't seem angry or intimidating beyond their presence. Instead, there was a sense of purpose in the way they were there, a sense of loyalty and honor that Maya could feel in the air. The bikers began to interact with the regulars, introducing themselves politely, shaking hands, and offering small gestures of friendliness. Maya watched, fascinated and slightly nervous as the scene unfolded. It was surreal, her small, quiet diner filled with hundreds of bikers, yet instead of chaos, there was a strange calm. They seemed to respect the space, as though they understood that they were guests in someone else's home. One of the bikers handed Maya a small leather pouch. "This is for you," he said. "A token of our appreciation. You saved one of ours. That means something in our world." Maya accepted it with trembling hands, feeling the weight of both the object and the meaning behind it. Inside, there were small handmade items, carefully crafted, thoughtful, and personal. She realized that this gesture, humble as it might seem, carried profound significance. The bikers didn't stay long after that. They spent some time talking, quietly with Maya, sharing stories and expressing their gratitude. Then, one by one, they mounted their motorcycles and roared off down the street. Maya watched them go, a mixture of relief, awe, and disbelief washing over her. The rumble of the engines faded into the distance, leaving the diner in quiet once more. Maya leaned against the counter, exhaling slowly. The morning that had started with worry and tension had transformed into something extraordinary. She thought about the man she had helped, and the chain of events that had led to this moment. It was almost unbelievable, yet she knew it had happened. She had made a choice based on compassion and courage, and it had been recognized in a way she had never imagined. As the diner returned to its normal rhythm, Maya reflected on what she had experienced. Courage, she realized, didn't always come with loud gestures or dramatic confrontation. Sometimes it came quietly, in the small decisions made under pressure, in the choice to do what was right even when it was risky. And sometimes that courage inspired others in ways that could be overwhelming, beautiful, and humbling all at once. By the afternoon, the diner was filled with the usual customers again. The story of the biker's visit had already begun to spread through the town. People whispered and marveled, not just at the sheer number of motorcycles, but at the fact that Maya had been recognized for her courage. Some of the customers seemed a little nervous at first, unsure of what had happened, but Maya smiled at them, her confidence steady. She had faced the moment, and now she knew that standing up for what was right could lead to unexpected and meaningful connections. Maya cleaned the diner later that evening, thinking about the events of the day. She realized that bravery wasn't about recognition or reward. It was about integrity, empathy, and the willingness to protect others even when it was difficult. The visit from the bikers, while extraordinary, was a reminder that the world had ways of acknowledging good deeds in ways that were sometimes unexpected. As she turned off the lights and locked the doors for the night, Maya felt a profound sense of calm. The diner had witnessed something remarkable today. A small act of courage had sparked a moment of gratitude and respect from a community she had never imagined interacting with. She knew that life could bring challenges again, but she felt prepared. She had seen firsthand that doing the right thing, even in fear and uncertainty, could create ripples of impact far beyond her imagination. Maya went home that night with a quiet heart, reflecting on what she had learned. The world could be unpredictable, dangerous, and complicated, but she had the strength to navigate it. Courage and kindness were powerful forces, and she had seen their effects in the most unexpected way. The diner, her small place of work and sanctuary, had become a space of connection, respect, and recognition. And Maya knew that she would carry the memory of this day with her, a reminder that even one person's bravery could inspire loyalty, gratitude, and lasting change. The days after the biker's visit felt surreal to Maya. The diner returned to its usual rhythm, but there was a subtle shift in the atmosphere that everyone could sense. Locals who came in to eat still chatted about ordinary things, but there was a quiet reverence in their tone when they mentioned what had happened. Some whispered about the hundreds of motorcycles that had roared down the street, while others spoke of the respect the bikers had shown her. Maya served breakfast and coffee, flipped pancakes and washed dishes, but she carried a new sense of awareness with her. She understood now that actions, even small ones, could ripple out in ways no one could predict. Maya thought often about the man she had protected. She wondered if he was safe, if he had made it to wherever he needed to go, and if life had returned to a sense of normalcy for him. She didn't know his name, and he hadn't asked for hers, but she felt connected to him in a way that was hard to explain. Sometimes she imagined him telling stories of her kindness to the others in his group, quietly sharing the memory of a woman who had risked her own safety without hesitation. That thought made her heart warm. She had always believed that courage mattered, that standing up for someone when no one else would was worth the fear it brought. And now she saw proof that her instincts had been right. The diner continued to fill with regular customers each day, and Maya returned to her routines. She welcomed familiar faces with smiles and small talk, poured coffee, and prepared plates with the same care she always had. Yet the memory of the biker's visit lingered, a quiet reminder of how fragile life could be and how meaningful acts of kindness were. She realized that her diner had become more than a place to eat. It had become a symbol, a space where courage, trust, and humanity intersected. News of the visit spread beyond the diner. Some people from town came by not just to eat, but to see the place where something extraordinary had happened. They looked around curious, as if expecting to see traces of the hundreds of bikers who had come through the door. Maya greeted them as she always did, polite and kind, careful not to make them feel unwelcome. She answered their questions simply, never embellishing or dramatizing the story. She knew that the truth, in its quiet way, was powerful enough. One afternoon, a young man came into the diner. He was new to town, probably visiting family or passing through, and he had heard about the diner's recent fame. He hesitated for a moment at the entrance, looking around at the familiar tables and chairs, then approached Maya. "I heard what happened here," he said softly. "That was incredible. Most people wouldn't have done what you did." Maya smiled gently, feeling a mix of humility and pride. "I just tried to do the right thing," she said. "Sometimes it's not easy, but it's important." The young man nodded, inspired by her words, and went to a table, sharing the story with others in a quiet, respectful tone. Maya realized that her actions had left an impression, and she felt a quiet satisfaction in knowing that courage and kindness could inspire others, even in a small town like hers. Over the next few weeks, the diner became a place of connection in ways Maya hadn't expected. People came not just for the food, but to feel part of something larger, to witness the place where integrity and bravery had met. The community seemed more united, more aware of the ways they could support one another and act with empathy. Maya found herself thinking about how small acts could have lasting consequences, how one choice made in a moment of fear and responsibility could create ripples of respect and gratitude. Maya also thought about her own life in new ways. She realized that courage wasn't only about grand gestures or heroic acts, it was about the daily choices, the moments when someone had the opportunity to help and chose to do so despite fear. It was about protecting others when no one else would, about trusting instincts and acting with integrity. That understanding became a guiding principle for her, a quiet strength she carried with her as she moved through each day. One evening, after closing the diner, Maya sat by the window with a cup of coffee. The street outside was quiet, the lights from nearby buildings reflecting softly on the pavement. She thought about all the people who had passed through the diner over the years, the conversations, the laughter, the moments of connection and support. And she thought about the man she had protected, and the bikers who had come to show their gratitude. Life had a way of surprising her, of showing her that even small acts could carry profound meaning. She realized that bravery was not always recognized immediately, and sometimes it went unnoticed entirely. But the impact remained, quietly shaping the lives of those who experienced it or witnessed it indirectly. Maya felt proud, not for recognition, but for knowing that she had stayed true to herself, her values, and her instincts. She had acted with compassion when fear could have paralyzed her. And that choice had changed the course of events in ways she could only begin to understand. In the following weeks, the diner continued to thrive, not just as a place for meals, but as a space where people felt safe, connected, and inspired. Maya greeted everyone with warmth, served food with care, and listened when someone needed to talk. The story of the biker's visit became part of the diner's quiet legend, a tale of courage and gratitude that people shared with reverence. Yet Maya never let it change who she was. She remained humble, kind, and focused on the simple joy of running her diner and caring for the people who came through its doors. One day, a customer asked her, "Do you ever worry that helping someone like that might bring trouble?" Maya paused, thinking for a moment. Then she smiled softly. "Yes," she said. "But courage isn't about being fearless. It's about doing what's right even when you're afraid." The customer nodded, clearly moved by her words. Maya realized that this principle, quiet and simple as it was, could touch people in ways far beyond her imagination. As time went on, Maya reflected on the larger meaning of the events. She understood that life could be unpredictable, and that people often faced moments that tested their character. She had faced such a moment, and she had chosen integrity and compassion over fear and convenience. That choice had brought unexpected connections, gratitude, and a sense of shared humanity that she cherished deeply. Maya also thought about the man she had helped and the bikers who had come to express their gratitude. She knew she might never see him again, and that was okay. What mattered was that she had acted when it counted. That knowledge gave her a quiet confidence, a sense of fulfillment that was far more meaningful than any recognition or reward. The diner continued to be a gathering place for the town, a place where stories were shared, friendships were built, and lives were quietly impacted by the presence of someone who acted with courage and empathy. Maya found joy in the routine, in the simple acts of serving, listening, and caring. She realized that her bravery had not only protected someone in need, but had also inspired others, showing them that even ordinary people could make extraordinary choices.